The two remaining constructs moved together like dancers in a deadly ballet. As they merged their power systems, energy flowed between them in streams of liquid fire. The ancient machines were becoming something new and terrible. They were joining into a single weapon more powerful than both had been separately. The merged construct was enormous. It dwarfed the largest ships in the fleet and cast shadows across entire formations. Energy crackled around its hull in patterns that hurt to look at. It no longer needed to stay near the star to draw power. It had absorbed enough energy to move freely through space. Captain Yoon De-yoon watched the monster approach from her dreadnought Invictus. Her ship was the biggest and strongest vessel in the human fleet, but it looked like a toy next to the merged construct. The ancient weapon trailed energy streams that could cut through any known defensive field. The construct began its attack by reaching out with tentacles of pure energy. These were not the same weapons it had used before. The merger had created something entirely new. The tentacles passed through ship shields like they were not there, and began draining power directly from enemy reactors. Alien ships that touched the energy tentacles simply stopped working. Their lights went out, and their engines died. Crews found themselves floating helpless in dead ships while the construct fed on their power. It was not destroying the ships anymore, it was eating them alive. The surviving alien commanders finally understood what they were facing. This was not just a weapon from an ancient civilization. It was a living creature that fed on energy and grew stronger with every meal. It had been sleeping for 10,000 years and now it was hungry. Fleet Commander Gorth Nineclaws had survived the destruction of his flagship in an escape pod. He watched his remaining bioships get drained of life by the construct tentacles. His ships screamed as they died and he could feel their pain through his psychic connection to them. But the alien fleets did not run this time. They had learned something from watching the humans fight. Sometimes you had to stand and face impossible odds because running away just made things worse. They formed defensive formations around the human ships and prepared to make their final stand. The Krathari bioships began regenerating faster than ever before. They grew new weapons and armor even as the construct attacked them. The Vorthak used their gravity manipulators to create space distortions that deflected some of the energy tentacles. The Zephyrians focused their remaining psychic power on protecting the other ships from mental attacks. But it was clear that conventional tactics would not work. The merged construct was adapting to every strategy they tried. It copied their weapons and turned their own technology against them. Every attack just made it stronger and more dangerous. Captain Yoon Da-yoon called a meeting of the remaining human commanders. They gathered in a secure channel while battle raged around them. The situation looked hopeless, but humans had faced hopeless odds before, and won. They just needed to find the right approach. The solution came from the most unlikely source. The human dreadnought Invictus carried experimental quantum torpedoes that had never been tested in battle. These weapons existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. They could theoretically damage targets that normal weapons could not touch. But using the quantum torpedoes required getting close enough to the construct to manually detonate them. The weapons had to be synchronized with the construct energy matrix from inside its defensive field. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. Captain Lee Tae-ho volunteered immediately. His ship Horizon was the smallest and fastest vessel in the human fleet. If anyone could get close enough to deliver the weapons, it was him. His crew volunteered to go with him even though they all knew they would not come back. Admiral Kim So-ra approved the mission, even though it meant sending her best captain to his death. She had seen too many good people die already, but sometimes sacrifice was the only way to save others. The quantum torpedoes were loaded onto the Horizon along with the targeting systems needed to make them work. The final attack began with every ship in the fleet opening fire at once. Alien and human weapons lit up space as they struck the merged construct from all directions. The ancient weapon responded by wrapping energy tentacles around multiple ships at once. It was trying to drain the entire fleet. Through this chaos, the Horizon began its final run. Captain Lee Tae-ho pushed his engines past their safety limits as he dove toward the construct heart. His shields failed almost immediately, but the little ship kept flying. Behind him, the combined fleet fought desperately to keep the construct distracted. The construct noticed the approaching ship and sent energy beams to destroy it. But Lee Tae-ho had been flying combat missions for 20 years. He knew how to dodge and weave through enemy fire. His ship danced through the deadly beams like a leaf in a storm. The horizon punched through the construct outer energy field and flew into its core. Inside the ancient weapon was a maze of energy conduits and power nodes. The walls pulsed with stolen starlight and the air itself burned with contained power. No living thing was meant to survive in such a place. Lee Tae-ho crew worked frantically to synchronize the quantum torpedoes with the construct energy matrix. The heat was melting their equipment and radiation was cooking them alive, but they kept working because the entire galaxy depended on their success. The targeting system locked onto the construct central power core just as the ship began to fall apart. The quantum torpedoes were armed and ready to detonate in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The explosion would tear apart the construct from inside its own energy matrix. Lee Tae-ho gave the order to fire and closed his eyes. The quantum torpedoes detonated in a cascade of multi-dimensional explosions that ripped through space and time itself. The construct core began to collapse as its energy matrix was torn apart by forces from other dimensions. The ancient weapon died screaming. Its death cry echoed across hyperspace in frequencies that every psychic being in the galaxy would remember, forever. The merged construct tore itself apart from the inside as the quantum explosion spread through its entire structure. When the explosions ended, the horizon emerged from the wreckage damaged but intact. Captain Lee Tae-ho and his crew had somehow survived the impossible. They had flown into the heart of an ancient weapon and lived to tell about it. The construct was dead. Its massive hull broke apart and fell toward the dying star. Energy that had been stolen from countless worlds was finally released back into space. The threat that had terrified the galaxy for 10,000 years was finally ended. The surviving ships of the Armada watched in stunned silence as debris from the ancient weapon scattered across the system. They had done the impossible. They had defeated enemies that the biggest war fleet in galaxy history came together in the dark space between stars. These were not ordinary ships with ordinary crews. These were Deathworlder ships crewed by the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Each race came from worlds where only the strongest could survive. The Krathari brought ships that looked like giant bones floating in space. Their ships were grown, not built. They took the skeletons of space monsters and turned them into weapons. Captain Yoon Da-eun watched through her telescope as the bone ships moved like living things. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. The Vorthak came in black ships that bent space around them. Their weapons could make black holes appear out of nothing. Their ships moved without engines by folding space and stepping through it. When they appeared, they made no sound, but space itself seemed to scream. The Zephyrians brought ships that glowed with mental energy. They fought with their minds instead of guns. They could make enemy crews go crazy or forget how to fight. Their ships looked like crystals floating in the dark, and they hummed with psychic power. Each alien race thought they were the best fighters in the galaxy. They had conquered their dangerous homeworlds and then conquered space. They looked down on other species as weak and soft. But most of all, they looked down on humans. Fleet Commander Gorth Nineclaws was the leader of the Krathari fleet. He had killed more enemies than anyone could count. His claws were made of metal, and his teeth were sharp as knives. When he saw the human ships, he laughed a sound like breaking glass. The human ships looked tiny next to the alien war machines. They were made of simple metal and used old-fashioned rockets to move. Their weapons shot bullets and bombs instead of energy beams. To the aliens, the human ships looked like toys. Captain Yoon Da-eun commanded the biggest human ship called Invictus. She had fought pirates and rebels across the galaxy. Her ship was tough, and her crew was loyal. But even she had to admit their ships looked weak compared to the alien fleets. The leader of the whole armada was Supreme War Alpha Thex of the Vorthak. He was 9 feet tall with skin like black stone. His eyes glowed red, and when he spoke, his voice made the air shake. He called a meeting of all the fleet commanders. The meeting happened in empty space, with each commander appearing as a hologram. Dozens of alien faces filled the dark around Supreme War Alpha Thex. When Admiral Kim So-ra appeared among them, many of the aliens made disgusted noises. The aliens thought humans were barely civilized. Humans had only learned to travel between stars a few hundred years ago. The other races had been space travelers for thousands of years. To them, humans were like children playing with weapons they did not understand. But Admiral Kim So-ra did not care what the aliens thought. She had seen the reports about the weapon in the void sector. She knew how dangerous it was. The aliens were brave fighters, but they did not understand what they were facing. Intelligence reports showed the 3 machines in the void sector were getting ready to fire. They had drained half the energy from their star and turned it into weapons power. Each machine was the size of a small moon and covered in weapons that could destroy planets. Supreme War Alpha Thex made battle plans. The Deathworlder fleets would attack in waves. First, the Chthari would hit the machines with their bone ships and living weapons. Then the Vorthak would follow with their black hole guns. Finally, the Zephyrians would attack the machines' minds and drive them crazy. The plan sounded good, but Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho was worried. He was the smartest human in the intelligence division. He studied the energy readings from the void sector and found something wrong. The machines were using technology older than any known civilization. Choi Min-ho tried to tell the alien commanders about his concerns. The energy patterns did not match anything in their databases. The machines seemed to be using some kind of technology that could change and adapt. They might be more dangerous than anyone realized. But the aliens did not want to hear warnings from a human. Fleet Commander Gorth Nineclaw said humans were cowards who saw danger everywhere. Supreme War Alpha Thex said the human was trying to scare them because humans were afraid to fight. The alien fleets were magnificent. Thousands of ships stretched across space in perfect formations. Each ship was a masterpiece of war technology. Their weapons could crack moons and boil oceans. Their shields could stop anything known to science. The Chthari bioships pulsed with organic energy. Living weapons grew from their hulls like thorns on a rose. The ships could heal themselves if they got hurt, and they could grow new weapons. During battle, they looked like giant sea monsters swimming through space. The Vorthak ships moved in impossible ways. They could appear in one place and then be somewhere else instantly. Their gravity weapons could crush anything or throw it into another dimension. Reality bent around their black ships like they were holes in space itself. The Zephyrian crystal ships sang as they moved. The sound carried through space somehow and made everyone who heard it feel brave or afraid. Their psychic weapons could reach across vast distances and drive enemies insane. They could make whole crews forget how to fight. Captain Park Hyun-soo watched the alien fleets from his human cruiser Defiance. He had to admit they were impressive. Each alien race had conquered death worlds that would kill a human in minutes. They had technology that seemed like magic compared to human science. But Park Hyun-soo also remembered something his grandfather had told him. His grandfather had fought in the war for Earth independence. He said that fancy weapons and superior technology did not always win battles. Sometimes the winner was the one who refused to give up. The Armada moved toward the void sector like a storm of metal and energy. Millions of alien warriors prepared for battle. They checked their weapons and said prayers to their war gods. They were confident they would win because they had never lost a battle. The human ships moved with the alien fleets, but they stayed together in their own formation. The humans knew the aliens did not trust them. They would have to prove themselves in battle before they would be accepted as equals. Admiral Kim So-ra sent coded messages to all the human ships. She told them to stay alert and watch everything. She had a feeling this battle would not go the way the aliens expected. The weapon in the void sector had been waiting 10,000 years. It would not be easy to destroy. The 3 machines in the void sector pulsed with dark energy as the Armada approached. They had detected the incoming fleets and were preparing to defend themselves. Ancient systems came online that had been sleeping since before the galaxy was young. The Deathworlder Armada was about to learn that being the scariest predator in known space meant nothing when facing something from beyond the edge of nightmares. The alien fleets ran away, but the humans stayed. While thousands of advanced ships fled into hyperspace, the small human fleet held its position. They watched the constructs grow stronger and knew someone had to make a stand. If the ancient weapons left this system, the galaxy would burn. Admiral Kim So-ra took command of all remaining forces. Her voice cut through the panic and fear that filled the communication channels. She spoke calmly to captains whose crews were terrified. She gave orders to ships whose weapons had proven useless. Slowly, the retreat stopped. The alien commanders, who had looked down on humans, now found themselves taking orders from one. Admiral Kim Sora organized the scattered ships into new formations. She pulled back the damaged vessels and moved the healthy ones into defensive positions. For the first time since the battle began, they had a plan. Colonel Bang Seok-jin led the human marines in studying the enemy. While other species had focused on building bigger weapons, humans had learned to think. They watched the constructs fight and looked for patterns. Every enemy had weaknesses if you knew how to find them. The constructs were not acting randomly. They moved in specific ways and attacked in certain patterns. They were incredibly smart, but intelligence could be predicted if you understood how an enemy thought you could guess what they would do next. The key discovery came from Engineer Chief Lim Na-young. She was monitoring the energy flows between the constructs and the star. The constructs had to pause their attacks every few minutes to absorb more stellar energy. During these pauses, they were vulnerable to counterattack. The aliens had missed this because they were too busy throwing their most powerful weapons at the problem. They saw the constructs as unstoppable forces of destruction. Humans saw them as puzzles to be solved. Every machine had limits, even ancient ones. Captain Kwon Jae-min studied the star itself instead of the constructs. The dying star was being drained of energy through massive conduits that connected it to the three weapons. If they could disrupt those connections, the constructs would lose their power source. It was a dangerous plan. Human ships would have to fly through the construct's energy fields to reach the stellar conduits. The alien weapons had proven useless, but maybe human tactics could succeed where alien technology had failed. The remaining alien ships formed a protective screen around the human vessels. Krathari bioships that had fled in terror now moved to shield the humans from construct attacks. Vorthak gravity ships created space distortions to deflect enemy beams. Even the broken Zephyrian vessels tried to help. Captain Park Hyun-soo volunteered to lead the first attack run. His cruiser Defiance was fast enough to dodge the construct beams, but strong enough to carry the special charges they needed. His crew knew they probably would not survive, but they volunteered anyway. The charges were human inventions called stellar disruptors. They were simple devices that created interference patterns in stellar plasma. The aliens had never seen anything like them because they built complex solutions to every problem. Humans built simple tools that worked. The attack began with diversionary strikes on all three constructs. Human missiles and alien weapons hit the ancient machines from multiple directions. The constructs responded by focusing their defenses on the areas under attack. They did not notice the small ships moving toward the star. Captain Park Hyun-soo led 5 ships through walls of destructive energy. His shields failed within seconds and his hull began to melt from the heat. Behind him, other ships exploded as construct beams found their targets. But they kept flying toward their goal. The stellar conduits were massive tubes of energy that connected the star to the constructs. They glowed brighter than anything else in the system. Flying near them was like flying into the heart of a sun. Human ships were never designed for such conditions. 2 more ships exploded before they reached the deployment point. Captain Park Hyun-soo's ship was falling apart around him, but he held course. His crew worked frantically to deploy the stellar disruptors while the ship died around them. They had one chance to get this right. The disruptors activated and sent interference waves through the stellar plasma. The energy conduits began to flicker as the waves disrupted the flow of power. For the first time since the battle began, the construct's energy supply became unstable. The effect was immediate. The nearest construct flickered like a candle in the wind. Its weapons stopped firing and its energy tentacles collapsed. The ancient machine was vulnerable for the first time in 10,000 years. The alien fleets saw their chance and struck. Every surviving ship in the Armada opened fire at once. Krathari bioweapons, Vorthak gravity guns, Zephyrian psychic attacks, and human nuclear missiles all hit the weakened construct simultaneously. The combined firepower of multiple species focused on a single target. The construct tried to adapt, but it could not absorb energy faster than it was being destroyed. Cracks appeared in its hull, and light leaked out like blood from wounds. The ancient machine was dying, and it screamed in frequencies that hurt to hear. Commander Seo Eun-ji coordinated the follow-up attacks. She directed fire at the construct's weakest points and kept the pressure constant. Her tactical computers calculated the optimal firing solutions and shared them with every ship in the fleet. Human coordination was turning the tide. The first construct exploded in a cascade of released energy that lit up the entire star system. The shockwave knocked nearby ships off course and overloaded sensors across the fleet. When the light faded, one of the ancient weapons was gone forever. But the victory came at a terrible price. Captain Park Hyun-soo and his crew were dead. Their ship had been destroyed in the energy cascade. They had given their lives to prove that the constructs could be defeated. The remaining two constructs reacted to their companion death with fury. They abandoned their stationary positions and began moving toward the fleet. Their weapons charged with power drawn from their dying companion. They intended to make the attackers pay for their victory. Admiral Kim So-ra watched the approaching constructs and knew the real battle was just beginning. They had proven the enemy could be hurt, but now they faced two angry ancient weapons with nothing left to lose. The constructs were done playing games. The second phase of the battle was about to begin. The constructs were adapting to human tactics, just as they had adapted to alien weapons. But humans had one advantage the aliens did not have. They never stopped learning, and they never gave up. Engineer Chief Lim Na-young was already working on new disruption patterns. Colonel Bang Seok-jin was studying the construct movement patterns. Captain Kwon Jae-min was planning the next attack run. While the aliens mourned their losses, humans prepared for the next phase. The star pulsed weaker now with one less construct draining its energy. But the remaining two machines were merging their power conduits. They were combining their strength into a single massive weapon system. The humans had won the first round, but the final battle was coming. The Deathworlder Armada dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Thousands of ships appeared at once in the dark space around the void sector. Each ship was ready for war with weapons charged and shields up. It was the most powerful military force ever assembled in galaxy history. Supreme War Alpha Thex stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the enemy. The three machines hung in space like metal moons around the dying star. They were bigger than anyone had expected. Each one was covered in weapons and glowed with stolen starlight. But something was wrong. The machines were not machines at all, they were alive. Captain Park Hyun-soo saw it first through his ship sensors. The three constructs pulsed like giant hearts. Energy flowed through them like blood through veins. They were living beings made of metal and light. As soon as the Armada appeared, the constructs attacked. Beams of pure destruction shot across space faster than light itself. The beams did not just destroy things they touched, they made them stop existing completely. Matter turned to nothing and left empty holes in space. The first wave of attacks hit the Krithari bioships. These ships were grown from the strongest materials in the galaxy. They had survived battles with space monsters and pirate fleets. But when the construct beams hit them, they simply vanished. Not destroyed or blown apart. They just stopped being there. Fleet Commander Gorth Nine Claws watched in horror as dozens of his best ships disappeared. His bone ships that had seemed so powerful now looked like toys. The constructs were using weapons beyond anything known to science. They were rewriting reality itself. The Vorthak responded with their gravity cannons. These weapons could make black holes appear anywhere in space. They could crush planets or throw moons at enemy fleets. Supreme War Alpha Thex ordered all guns to fire at the nearest construct. Hundreds of gravity beams hit the construct at the same time. Space twisted and bent around the impact points. Black holes opened and closed like blinking eyes. But when the attack ended, the construct was still there. It had absorbed all the energy and was glowing brighter than before. The construct began to change shape. It grew larger as it fed on the Vorthak weapons. New arms sprouted from its sides and more weapons appeared on its surface. It was learning from each attack and becoming stronger. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Captain Yoon Da-eun watched the battle from her human dreadnought Invictus. The alien superweapons were doing nothing against the constructs. Worse than nothing. Each attack made the enemies more powerful. The most advanced military technology in the galaxy was useless. The Zephyrians tried their psychic attacks next. Their crystal ships sang as they focused their mental energy on the constructs. They tried to drive the alien minds insane, or make them forget how to fight. Waves of psychic force rolled across space like invisible tsunamis. But the constructs had no minds to attack. They were pure energy held together by ancient technology. The psychic waves passed through them without any effect. The constructs responded by sending their own mental attacks back at the Zephyrians. The crystal ships began to scream. Not just the crews inside, but the ships themselves. The constructs had found a way to cause pain to living crystal. Zephyrian. Ships cracked and shattered as their crews went insane from agony they could not understand. Commander Seo Yunji coordinated the human fleet response from her tactical center. She had studied every alien weapon system in the database. She knew how they worked and what they could do. But none of it mattered now. The constructs were beyond anything in their records. The human ships used simple weapons compared to the aliens. They fired missiles with nuclear warheads and shot bullets made of dense metal. Their weapons looked primitive, but they actually worked. The missiles exploded against the construct hulls and left visible damage, but the damage healed instantly. The construct skin flowed like liquid metal and sealed every wound. The nuclear explosions that would have destroyed cities barely scratched the surface. Still, it was more effect than any alien weapon had achieved. The battle became a nightmare. Construct beams swept across the Armada and erased ships from existence. Alien crews that had never known fear began to panic. These were warriors from Deathworlds who had conquered the galaxy, but they had never faced anything like this. The constructs were not just defending themselves. They were hunting. They moved through space like predators, stalking prey. Energy. Tentacles reached out and grabbed ships to drain their power. Crews watched in horror as their own weapons were turned against them. Supreme War Alpha Thex tried to maintain order, but his flagship was under attack. A construct had wrapped energy, tentacles around his ship and was slowly crushing it. His crew fired everything they had, but the weapons just made the tentacles stronger. The flagship exploded in a ball of twisted space and time. The most powerful warrior in the galaxy died in an instant, along with his entire crew. The constructs had killed their first fleet commander, and they were just getting started. Panic spread through the alien fleets like a disease. Ships that had never retreated from battle turned and ran. The perfect formations broke apart as captains tried to save their own crews. The most disciplined military forces in the galaxy were falling apart. Captain Lee Tae-ho held his position, even as alien ships fled around him. His ship Horizon was small and fast, but not very strong. Against the constructs, it was like a mouse facing dragons. But he would not run while people needed help. The constructs were adapting to every weapon type they faced. Plasma beams became useless after the first few hits. Kinetic weapons stopped working after a few more. Even exotic matter bombs had no lasting effect. The constructs learned from everything and became immune. Worse, they were copying the alien technology. New weapons appeared on their hulls that looked like Krithari bioguns and Vorthok gravity cannons. They were turning captured technology against its makers with deadly efficiency. The star in the center of the system pulsed brighter as the constructs drained more energy from it. They were growing stronger with each passing moment. Soon, they would have enough power to leave the system and hunt across the galaxy. Admiral Kim Sora watched the disaster unfold from her command ship. The most powerful military force ever assembled was being destroyed by 3 ancient weapons. Thousands of ships were fleeing in all directions, while the constructs grew stronger. But the human ships held their positions. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they refused to retreat. Captain Park Hyun-soo kept firing even though his weapons barely scratched the enemy. Commander Seo Yunji coordinated attacks that bought time for fleeing alien ships. The constructs turned their attention to the stubborn human fleet. If these primitive warriors wanted to die, they would be happy to oblige them. Energy beams reached across space toward the human formation like the fingers of death itself. The first battle was lost, but the humans were still fighting. Against impossible odds and ancient enemies, they stood their ground when the galaxy's greatest warriors had fled. The darkness of space was quiet until the signal came. It came from the edge of the galaxy where no one went. The signal was loud and angry, and it made every ship in space shake. Captain Lee Tae-ho was drinking coffee on his ship when the signal hit. His cup fell from his hands and broke on the floor. His ship was called the Horizon, and it was far from Earth. Lee Tae-ho had been a captain for 10 years. He was brave and smart, and his crew trusted him. When the signal came, his ship shook, like it was in a storm. All the lights went red and alarms started making noise. Commander Park Ji-woo ran to the bridge. She was the best at understanding alien messages. Her face was white with fear as she looked at the screens. The signal was coming from a place called the Void Sector. No one had been there for thousands of years because bad things lived there. The signal was not just noise. It had words in it, old words from a language that was dead before humans learned to make fire. Park Ji-woo worked for hours to understand the message. When she did, she wished she had not. The message talked about a weapon so big it could kill planets. The weapon had been sleeping for 10,000 years, but now it was waking up. It was hungry and it wanted to eat worlds full of people. The signal had coordinates too. It showed exactly where the weapon was hiding. Lee Tae-ho called Earth right away. He sent the signal to everyone who would listen. The message went to the Galactic Council where all the alien races met. The council was on a big space station near the center of the galaxy. Representatives from 100 different worlds came together when they heard the news. The aliens were scared. They knew the old stories about the Void Sector. Their grandparents told stories about monsters that lived there. Monsters that ate stars and destroyed civilizations. The aliens thought the stories were just myths, but now they were not so sure. Admiral Kim So-ra was the highest-ranking human in the Joint Fleet. She was tough and never backed down from a fight. When she heard about the signal, she wanted to go, fight the weapon right away. But the aliens said no. They said humans were too violent and could not be trusted. The aliens wanted to send messages first. They wanted to try talking to the weapon. Maybe they could make a deal with it. Admiral, Kim So-ra laughed at this idea. She knew you could not make deals with things that wanted to eat planets. While the aliens talked and argued, the signal got stronger. Scientists watching from far away could see energy building up in the Void Sector. Something huge was drawing power from a dying star. The star was getting smaller as the weapon drained its energy. The Galactic Council met for days. They argued about what to do. Some wanted to run away and hide. Others wanted to build bigger defenses around their worlds. A few wanted to try talking to the weapon. Only the humans wanted to go fight it. The other alien races did not trust humans. They thought humans were barbarians from a death world. Earth was a dangerous planet with storms and earthquakes and wild animals. The aliens lived on safe worlds with no danger. They could not understand why humans were always ready to fight. But Admiral Kim So-ra knew something the aliens did not know. She knew that sometimes the only way to stop evil was to fight it. The weapon in the Void Sector would not listen to words. It would only understand force. Long-range sensors showed more bad news. The weapon was not just one thing, it was 3 huge machines, each as big as a moon. They were all connected and they were all getting stronger. Energy readings were off. The charts. Whatever they were planning would happen soon. The aliens kept talking, but Admiral Kim So-ra started making secret plans. She sent coded messages to human ships all over the galaxy. The messages said to come to a meeting point near the edge of known space. They had to move fast and quiet so the aliens would not know. Captain Lee Tae-ho got the message while he was still studying the signal. He knew what it meant. The humans were going to fight alone if they had to. He turned his ship around and headed for the meeting point. Other human ships got the same message. Captain Park Hyun-soo and his cruiser Defiance changed course. Commander Seo Yoon-ji in the tactical center started planning battle formations. Captain Yoon Da-yoon in the big ship Invictus loaded her weapons. The weapon kept getting stronger. Now it was so bright that telescopes could see it from across the galaxy. The 3 machines were spinning faster and energy was crackling between them. They looked like 3 angry eyes staring out from the darkness. Scientists said they had maybe a week before the weapon would be ready to fire. When it did fire, it would destroy everything in its path. Whole star systems would die. Billions of people would be killed. The Galactic Council was still arguing when the first human ships started disappearing from their patrol routes. The aliens noticed, but they thought the humans were just scared and running away. They did not know that the humans were gathering for the biggest fight of their lives. Admiral Kim Sora looked at the reports coming in. 50 human ships were already at the meeting point. More were coming every hour. It was not many ships compared to what the aliens could bring, but it would have to be enough. The signal from the weapon got stronger every day. Now it was sending out smaller signals too. These new signals went to different parts of the galaxy. The weapon was looking for targets. It was choosing which worlds to destroy first. Lee Tae-ho studied the star maps on his ship. The weapon could reach Earth in 2 days once it started firing. It could reach most of the major alien worlds too. This was not just about saving humans. This was about saving everyone. But the aliens still would not listen. They thought they had more time. They thought they could find a peaceful solution. They did not understand that some things in the universe were just evil and had to be stopped. The human ships kept coming to the meeting point. Each ship brought brave people ready to die to save the galaxy. They knew the odds were against them, but they did not care. Someone had to make a stand, and it looked like it would be the humans. The weapon in the void sector pulsed with dark energy. Soon, it would be ready. Soon, the killing would begin.